My name is Karina de Bruin, and welcome to this first part of the Building Resilience in the Workplace webinar. We will continue next week, so if you do attend this week, please remember to you can check in next week again, because we will be doing half of it. Then we are going to focus, we can maybe almost change the title a little bit to fitness for work, and I would like to add and life, because the lessons that we learn here will also be useful generally in life. So who am I? My name is Karina de Bruin. I'm a psychologist for the last 30 years, as you can see. I'm also the managing director of JVR Academy, where we focus on behavioral skills development across the employee life cycle. So that would include things like getting ready for work, whether you have just completed your studies or whether you've just completed schools. How do I behave in the workplace for good performance? We look at things like personal and interpersonal development, team development, and then also management and leadership development programs. Now, we are talking about resilience today, but resilience forms part of, its core of all it's a core skill in coping with challenges at work, but also to assist us in performing to our best. So in all the programs that we offer, there's always a resilience element as well. So maybe in the chat box, what I would like to ask, and then I hope that I can navigate the chat box, just to give me a little bit of context to what are you currently doing? Are you a student? Are you employed? Are you working for yourself? Are you an entrepreneur? For how long have you been in the work environment? So maybe if you can just tell me a little bit about that, that would be great. And let me see if I can find the chat box. I can't find the chat box, and it's maybe just because of the settings. But Tracy, maybe if you see the chat box, and if there's any responses there, maybe you can share them with me, that would be great.
Perfect. There's nothing that has come through yet. I'm sure people are still adding in their details.
Okay, let's give it a second more. Just to know, how do I pitch this? Maybe you've been in the workplace forever, and you've been very, very successful and very resilient. And then, of course, I might feel a little bit stupid to tell you stuff that you already know. And if no one is responding, that's also fine. Then I'm just imagining who the audience is.
So, Karina, we do have some comments. We have a student and self-employed, a newly qualified professional, still trying to find my feet, a global, a client manager in a global tech company. Melky has said, started a year ago. I'm a one-man show, hoping to grow and hire people. Esty said, I've been working in my position for 20 years. We have an entrepreneur, so a student, self-employed, so a very different array of people.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Tracy, and thank you for all your contributions, everyone. So this gives me a good idea that actually we are talking to, like I said, at JVR, we work with the whole employee lifespan, and it seems to me as if this is what we also have in the audience today. So if I tell you something that's old news, maybe just remind yourself about that again. And if I tell you something that's new news, then I'm very happy about that. So if I show you this picture, the context that we work in. Which words, and Tracy, now you will have to help me again, which words come to mind if you see this? For the students, also if you think the context, maybe you're not working yet, but I'm sure you are watching the news, you are looking at what's going on around you. So what's the one or two words that come to mind when we look at this part of a sentence, the context that we work in? How would you describe that, just in a single word or two?
So we have one, hectic.
Hectic. Now, of course, what I would typically do is, if a client tells me it's hectic, I would say, okay, tell me a little bit more about that. What does hectic mean to you? Because maybe hectic might mean something completely different to me. But yeah, hectic.
We have global, culture, never ending, the overall purpose of the job. Busy. Team dynamics.
Thank you for that, everyone. It seems as if you are all living on the same planet as the same planet as I do, because those are exactly the same kind of things that come to mind from a personal experience. But also, if we do a little bit research and if we read further, the landscape of work is really hectic. So according to the World Economic Forum, that they've got a Future of Jobs report, the world of work is being reshaped by major forces, including things like AI. I mean, that is a word that we hear every day in our work environment: AI, green transitions, and geopolitical change. So if we just look a little bit at technological change, that would include things like AI and automation. And these rapid advancements in technologies, including things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, are really fundamentally altering the nature of work. Routine and manual tasks are increasingly being automated, which can lead to job displacement, especially in administration and manufacturing. At the same time, there's new roles, there's digital analyst, analytical skills are important, technical skills are important. If I just think at JVR, this is a big drive that we have is for automation, and it's not to replace people, it's to make our work more efficient, because some of these tasks can really be automated, and you can actually free up time for more valuable work when you work with people, when you have more time available. But we know that these things like automation and AI is really causing a lot of worry for some people, specifically if they are in a position where they see that, all these tasks that I'm usually, that I've done is now being automated. Then things like green transition, there's a global shift towards sustainability and environmental responsibility. And of course, we know that it's driven by things like climate change and regulatory pressures and demands from society. So it's sectors are really, or companies are really not forced, but they are part of this culture where there's a bigger shift towards renewable things, towards sustainability, and that of course also can cause a lot of development in organizations, but it can also cause a lot of stresses. And then geopolitical fragmentation. Now, I actually don't even want to say anything about that. If we watch the news and if we watch what's going on in the world out there, and how that, yes, we sit far away from America and the Middle East, but it really has a big impact on our trades, our foreign investments, the stability of international markets. So it's also important that the environment, this environment, we need to know that this environment creates uncertainty, and yes, we need to be a little bit more aware of geopolitical situations and how that impacts us as well. And then, of course, economic uncertainty. Now, there's a persistent economic instability caused by things like inflation, fluctuation in interest rates, and of course, all these things are also related to the international markets. And then this definitely impacts business confidence and investment decisions, and what we as consumers spend and can spend. So then, of course, also demographic shifts, where in some countries specifically, there's an aging population, and there's skill shortages that's being created. And then, of course, it has an impact on healthcare, and it increases the impact for elder care services and so as well. So a lot of, and these are just a few things that I'm mentioning, just to sort of set the scene of where do we find ourselves in a hectic landscape. So it is clearly a VUCA world. And I know VUCA is an old term already, but things happen at a great speed, magnitude, turbulence, and it has an impact on our lives and our work. It's unfamiliar, it's unpredictable, and we know that unpredictability and unfamiliarity often cause a lot of anxiety. It is complex. It's a complex world, and we are very connected these days. So what happens in one part of the world actually has a huge impact on what happens here as well. And then a lot of ambiguity. We also know that specifically in the workplace, ambiguity is, or lack of clarity is one of the things that cause most of the strain and the stresses. So for the students or for people who just started in the workplace, maybe we can still name it the honeymoon phase, although I think it's not the honeymoon to start a job. So they also face a lot of mismatches and workplace instability. There's a lot of stress from remote work. We see that, for example, we've got interns at JVR, and the interns that work remotely, it is very difficult, or new people coming into the workplace, it's really difficult to sit far away, and you have to understand the culture of the workplace, and you have to get to learn the people, and you don't know what's going on. So it's really very difficult to fit in a workplace like that. So we also know that for new entrants, that the pace of technology and industry changes means that the skills that they've learned during your studies may soon become obsolete. It's important that employers need to assist these newcomers to also adjust to the workplace, or give them an opportunity to learn new skills. They must stay future fit. I think I've skipped a slide now here. Sorry, I've skipped a few slides. Then we have the gig economy and the whole hybrid way of working and remote working. It's not traditional, it's not permanent. Office-based jobs are no longer the norm. People are freelancing. So you can hear there's also a lot of, for some people it worked well to be a contract worker, because after the contract, they can move on to the next contract. For other people, they need more stability, or an idea of, after this contract, I will definitely have another job as well. So that causes a lot of things. Psychological stress and burnout, new professionals really face unique psychosocial pressures as they transition from a structured study environment to the work environment, where the career prospects are very often uncertain, and they are expected to perform well because they come from the university now, they are degreed, and then of course they are expected to perform well as well. And then just another stressor is really navigating workplace norms. That is why work readiness programs, we find in organizations where they apply these, it really makes a huge difference. Because entering a new workplace, you have to understand and adhere to complex and often unspoken organizational norms. Things like communication styles and decision-making processes. And missteps in this area can really impact the newcomer, but then of course also the current colleagues and the supervisors. So yeah, I don't want to frighten the students, but this is what the workplace will look like, and that is why it's very good that you are attending this webinar as well. If we can't cope with these stresses, skills gaps widen. We really see that some people fall into unemployment or underemployment. Mental health suffers, and this. Oh, sorry, my mouse is not working, so I'm working here with my fingers, and my fingers are too fast for my brain, I think. Mental health declines. There was, let me just see here, reports show that about 280 million people live with depression. And this has really increased a lot over the past couple of years. And there's an interesting report. It's called the Ipsos World Mental Health Day Report. It's a study where they looked across 31 countries. They looked at people's perception of mental health and how they think their healthcare system treat mental health. And in 2024, just over 3 in 5 adults, it's 62% across 31 countries, reported experiencing stress that impact their daily lives. The same report said that younger generations missing work due to stress, that about 54% of Gen Zs say that they felt stressed to the point that they could not go to work during the past year. And for millennials, the figure was a little bit lower. So mental health still appears to be the number one health concern across the world. So productivity and retention suffer if we can't cope with these demands. Morale, retention, and then, of course, we also know that society bears long-term risks like economic inequality and social instability. So we really need to find ways to cope. How can we cope with these things? First thing is embrace continuous learning. Not just formal education, but also micro-learning and upskilling on the go. It's a term that I read, upskilling on the go. That was quite a nice way. So it's important to learn continuously, but it's also important to be self-directed in your learning. If we see that we are falling behind, if we see that my skills are going to be taken over by a Power BI report. Sorry, this is just a word that I hear in our organization. So, but if if I understand that, some machine or some program is going to do my work, then I need to be self-directed, and then I need to say, how can I make myself useful? How can I provide added value to this organization? Then also another one, and this is part of resilience, is building supportive networks. People play a very important role in terms of support and in terms of providing us with resilience and psychological safety. Then also reshaping our own roles. Like I mentioned, see where your role that you are currently in, where's your role heading, and how can you problem solve? How can you change your role? And how can you convince people that you can actually, that you are still relevant in the workplace? And then many organizations offer resources. So be self-directed and use the resources that the employer gives. And very often it includes things like flexible work hours or flexible arrangements or coaching or learning programs. And then the last one, and this is what we are going to focus on for the remainder of this session and also next week, is building resilience. So resilience is really crucial. It helps people to bounce back from setbacks, to adapt to changes, and to stay focused. Now, the typical definition of resilience is to bounce back. But you will hear that throughout the session, I may say bounce forward, because we think that, and it's not only us, but many people think that if you bounce back, it's one thing, but then you're sort of bouncing back to where you were. But we are actually getting stronger. If we practice good resilience, it's like going to the gym where you become stronger. And maybe today you can only pick up 10 kgs and keep on doing that for a week. Then in 2 weeks' time, that really feels like an easy job. So it's taking us forward. So building that muscle so that we can actually deal with more difficult situations. So learning from that as well. So resilience, and you will see I specifically chose that picture to show that there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of energy, but it's also going forward. So it's not just jumping back. So resilience is really essential in today's workforce. Personally, it helps us to cope with change and stress, with the hecticness of our lives. And on an organizational level, it supports a strong culture and really boosts engagement and employee performance. So resilience is the bridge between stress and challenges on the one hand and success on the other hand. At a personal level, resilience helps us to be more flexible, to be more optimistic, to solve problems better, specifically when uncertainty strikes. And next week, we will talk a little bit more about things like flexibility and optimism as well, because they really are core elements of resilience. Career resilience means being able to pivot, to reskill, to spot new opportunities as your job or as jobs evolve. And then on an organizational level, resilience comes from the culture. It's is there a culture of psychological safety that is crucial to resilience? Is there a mentorship program to guide other people? Is it a learning system where people, or is there a culture of learning where people can really learn and move forward? So companies that invest in resilience building really see better performance and worker satisfaction. We know if a worker is satisfied, then they are happy to turn up at work and happy to do their best. So now, finally, that was the introduction. Sorry for the long introduction, but it was a two-part series, so I thought I could extend it a little bit. And for me, it's always important to sketch the context that we have. So the purpose of the two-part webinar is to learn how to build resilience fitness in our human system as a whole. So it's not just a head exercise. It's not just a heart exercise. It's not just a body exercise. It is a resilience as a whole. Our everything impacts everything. So our if your head is right, then your heart will be right, and then your body will be right, and your social relationships might be right. So yes, we want to see how we can build resilience fitness to cope, grow, and be our best through work's challenges, but also through life's challenges. So if we talk about resilience, what is it? So the terms resilience, hardiness, and grit, we often use them interchangeably, but they may have different meanings in psychology and personal development. So if we talk about resilience, the definition is that resilience is the ability to recover, to adapt and bounce back and forward from stress, from adversity, from failure and challenges. And it reflects how well someone can maintain or regain mental health after difficulties, and actually be a stronger person as well. So it's not only returning to the original state, like I mentioned, but it's also learning and growing from the experiencing. So bouncing forward. There's a song or a saying that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is literally when I think about resilience. Also, I've just maybe on a personal level, I've got two kids who are students, and the one is studying overseas, and it's challenging to be there all on your own in a country that's where English isn't the first language. And when she complains, then my husband will always say, so Cara, what are we doing? And then she says, I'm building muscles. So in our household, it's building muscles. And she does sometimes say, why does everything need to be a lesson? But yeah. Cool. So it focuses on recovery and adaptation after setbacks. It involves emotional regulation, flexibility, and coping strategies. So, for example, if someone loses his or her job, a resilient person will quickly regroup. Of course, it will be a disappointment. It will be difficult. It's not easy. They will be stressed and all of that. But they will work through that, and they will quickly regroup. They will learn new skills, and they will look for fresh new job opportunities. Now, when we talk about hardiness, it's more of a personality trait that involves seeing stresses as challenges rather than threats. A hardy person is someone that feels in control of events, being committed to life and work. And then usually there's these 3 C's. If we think about hardiness, there's 3 C's that we can think about. The first one is committed. So even although it's difficult, the situation, stay committed and stay involved in life activities or work activities. Control is the next C, believing that you can actually influence the events. You have control over the situation. And then challenge, seeing change as difficulty as a growth opportunity. So it's more about the attitude towards stress. So an example is a hardy person in a demanding role may view work pressure as an exciting challenge. rather than as a source of distress. So it's really a personality, an innate personality trait. And then grit is the passion and sustained persistence that one applies toward long-term goals, regardless of difficulties and failures on your way to the long-term goal. So it consists of perseverance, of effort, consistency of interest over time. So it's more about long-term goal pursuit than immediate recovery from stress. So if we think about an athlete who trains every day for years to one day compete in the Olympics or one day to compete in the Comrades, now that we've just see the Comrades again. So it's how they show grit, they can stick to these goals despite of obstacles and slow progress. So yeah, maybe just a little bit of a difference among the three. Now at JVR, the model that we like to use is to say, how do we build resilience? And the model that we focus on is we've identified 5 areas. It's almost like 5 fingers on your hand where you need to focus on. And that's where the integrated system comes from as well when we talk about building resilience in a human as a whole. So in no particular order, but physical muscle, so we call it fitness, and we bring in muscle because it's really about building muscles. So physical muscles, and we are going to focus today on how can we build physical muscle and what's the physical stuff that we can do in order to assist us to be more resilient. We will look at cognitive muscle. How do we think about things? How flexible are we in our thinking? Social muscle, the importance of building relationships and having a good support system. Building emotional muscle, being aware of your emotions, being aware of stress, being aware of how that impacts your body, and being able to control your emotions as well. Excuse me. And then also build spiritual muscle, which for some people it might be a religion, for some people it might be something else. So we'll also talk about that a little bit. Today, just focusing on building physical muscle, and next week we will continue then with the rest. There's many things that we can do in order to build our physical muscle, and if there's any ideas in the room, please feel free to add it to the chat box as well. So being physically fit is really an essential advantage as we move through the storms of life, through the hectic workplace. And many of us, we are not really sporty or we are not really athletic. But does this mean then that we can't build some physical intelligence? I think if we constantly work on developing healthier behaviors and habits, that can really be described as having a positive physical intelligence or a strong physical muscle. So whether you are taking part in sporting events, whether you win medals, or whether you just do your thing, going for a 3-kilometer walk every second day, that is part of building physical muscle. I think it's also important that we must assess our physical intelligence or our physical muscle against our own abilities, against our own limitations and our lifestyles, rather than having a yardstick where we measure us against other people. Physical intelligence or building physical muscle has many facets, including things like athletical prowess, which would include things like being able to balance, ball skills, which I don't have a lot of, speed, which I have nothing of, reaction time, strength. Those are the physical intelligence, but though it's more. It can also include emotional awareness, and regard for our strengths and regard for our difficulties in terms of physical constraints. It includes things like healthy behavior. It includes things like listening to our bodies. It includes things like understand our abilities and our appearance. It includes stress management. So there's a whole lot of things that are related to building physical muscle. And we will be focusing on changing our lifestyle, managing our stress, and managing our energy. So now what happens now? There you go. Okay, so a lot of what I know about changing our lifestyle and from what I admire, it comes from this book from Dr. Peter Attia. I think there's some people in the audience that might have read this book. There's some people that might have been in previous sessions where I spoke about this book, and it's really one of the most influential resources. I've read it, but it's next to my bed, and from time to time I read from it again. So please, that is a very, very useful resource. Christmas is coming up, and that's maybe a good Christmas gift as well. From a very scientific point of view, he's a medical doctor who specializes in health and exercise and understanding how your body works. So that's a very, very good resource. And then another resource that is very useful is Andrew Huberman, who is also a neuroscientist, and he has very interesting webinars as well. He's got a YouTube channel. One you will see now, this one specifically, we talked with Peter Attia, who wrote the book that I've just shown you. So that's very, very useful, very insightful as well for those of you who don't enjoy reading, but rather watching videos. So if we talk about building physical muscle, there's the foundation for a positive low stress lifestyle is made up of 3 building blocks. The first one is diet, the second one is sleep, and then exercise is the third one. So no building resilience program will be successful in the long term unless we have this solid foundation. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a sleep specialist, I'm not an Olympic champion. What I know about these things is what I read and what I've read, what I'm reading all the time, and then also what I try to practice. So let's start with diet. So for many people, meals have become an afterthought. Sort of, fast food, or we work late and we quickly stop and pick up from the fast food or wherever, or frozen items. And sticking to a healthy diet is really part of managing stress. Now, I know my husband is listening to what I'm saying, and he will probably be smiling because I don't enjoy going into the kitchen. But I do value the importance of eating right. So giving our bodies the right fuel will give us the energy that we need to battle the harmful effects of stress. So like the saying goes, if you put in garbage, you will get out garbage. So any changes in diet, sleep, and exercise must be lifestyle orientated. So there are no quick fixes. You must integrate it in your lifestyle. And I think the most important advice is to set small goals for yourself. Perhaps this week will be to eat a piece of fruit every day, or perhaps the lunchtime burger maybe can be a salad. Yeah, so make it small changes. And we must remember that this process is very individual. Don't expect yourself to start eating like a Comrades athlete as soon as you decide to change uh, your lifestyle. Small goals that we can attain, that we can get to, build success as well. So it helps us to continue with these things. Also celebrate your healthy choices. Every time when you go shopping and you walk past the bag of chips, don't go and celebrate it by buying a chocolate, but go and celebrate it in some way. And even if it's just a mental, giving yourself a mental trophy, that might also help. And of course, don't be too hard on yourself. If you make an unhealthy choice, just do it a little bit better next time. I love sweets. I love chocolates, and I do allow myself some of these from time to time. So, yes, I did mention that a personalized program is important. So choose something that is really working for you. And some key recommendations, like I said, I'm not a dietitian, but what I do pick up is that protein is really important to maintain muscle mass. Especially for us who are now getting a little bit older, protein is really important in terms of building or keeping our muscles there. Avoiding overeating and late night meals. That is, of course, so maybe when you dish up a little bit less, and try to stop there. And maybe what I do is I just drink some extra water. And then also balancing your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. Now, another person that I follow a lot is it's a French biochemist. She's written a couple of books, and she's known as the glucose goddess. I think the book that she wrote was called The Glucose Revolution. She is, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname, but her name is Jessie Inchauspé. That's French name, sorry for the pronunciation there. But you can follow her on YouTube, or you can follow her on Instagram. And she really gives very basic hacks. She says that the understanding and managing our blood sugar levels is essential for our overall health and well-being. She helps people to make informed choices about nutrition and lifestyle that leads to improved physical and mental health. And she will, I've just written down here a few of the hacks. She calls it hacks. She makes very interesting graphs where she shows if you eat food in this order, this is what your blood sugar levels will look like. And if there's a sugar spike, what will happen to your body after that, and how will that impact your performance and how tired you feel. So it's really very basic. Even I understand that. But she would say things like eat in the right order. So if you want to have a bit of chocolate, don't start with the chocolate. Start with maybe some greens, green veggies, and then afterwards have the chocolate. And there's a scientific explanation of these things. She says add some vinegar to your food here and there, to your salad, for example. Make sure that you move after meals. So there's a difference between moving and exercising as well. So moving is extremely important. I've got a watch that here tells me you need to move now. So at the end of in order to keep my watch quiet, I will have to go and move around a little bit. She says opt for a savory breakfast rather than a sweet breakfast. Pair carbs with protein and fat. Hydrate properly and also get enough sleep, she adds to that. So that's the one resource, the glucose goddess. If you just Google that, you will find that very, very interesting. And then another resource that I like to follow, also by Dr. Carvalho. He's also a medical doctor, and he's got a channel called Nutrition Made Simple. So the science of healthy eating broken down. So in bite-sized pieces. So he looks at myths and he looks at interesting things. I see someone is using their pen here very nicely on my screen, so it wasn't me. Yeah, so that's also another nice resource, Nutrition Made Simple by Dr. Carvalho. Then, okay, now I see we've got a nice colorful slide here. Apologies for that. Then, of course, also fasting or intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating seems to be really something that can work for some people. And there's all sorts of resources around that as well. If you have any health issues, of course, it's important to make sure that you check in with your medical doctor around that as well. Then talking about sleeping, that's a second building block. We know it is one more thing that many of us, we think we don't have time for sleep. So there's some scary statistics that I found from a sleep study performed by the National Sleep Foundations a few years ago, that 43% of adults stated that they had a good night's sleep almost every night, only 43%. Additional 25% said they get a good night's sleep a few nights a week. I'm not sure where this comes from or where they get this from, but they say the average person needs 7 hours and 18 minutes for a good night's sleep, but they only receive 6 hours and 40 minutes. So that sounds, 6 hours still sound not too bad to me. So that difference doesn't really, doesn't sound like a big difference, but if you calculate that over a period of a year, it's quite a significant number of hours that you are in sleep debt. Okay, so sleep is really, really important. Some tips to help you to get a good night's sleep. Use your bed just for sleeping, not for reading, although I read a little bit. I read my book from Peter Attia. It helps me to fall a little bit asleep, but and sometimes work, especially if I read work documents, then I fall asleep easier. Remove the TV from your bedroom. Sleep is, try to sleep in your bed, not on your couch or in the armchair. So you have to have a plan for sleeping. Make your bedroom a comfortable place. Make sure that it's dark, that you have curtains that can keep out the light. Have a routine before you go to bed. For example, a cup of tea. I enjoy a cup of green tea. Enjoy is maybe overstatement, but I feel it's healthy for me and it really helps my metabolism. So I have a cup of green tea. Maybe if you have a few stretches, or if you want to have a warm bath. So make sure that you prepare your body and prepare your mind for sleep as well. Make sure that you have a consistent schedule. Try to go to bed roughly at the same time. It's the rhythms that your body is needing in order to make sure that they function, that the body functions okay, but also that the body restores and that the body rests. Avoid blue light, avoid heavy meals, create a quiet environment. I just read a little bit up on sleeping and so on. There's all sorts of rules. So, for example, there's something called like the 10-3-2-10 rule for sleep. It's the first time that I saw that when I prepared for this webinar. So the 10 is cut out caffeine 10 hours before bed. Now, that one was quite difficult because it's almost like you can only have it for breakfast. Don't eat or drink alcohol 3 hours before bed. Stop working 2 hours before bed, and go away from your screens 2 hours before bed. So that's those rules. And then also we know that falling asleep for many people is quite a problem. And we'll look at mindfulness is a very useful exercise that one can use to help you fall asleep, and just breathing as well. And we will touch on breathing in a few seconds. Exercise is the third building block and a very important part of stress reduction for many reasons. For example, it helps to make us stronger. It helps us to be more resilient to stress. It helps us to clear our minds. It reduces then also the harmful effects of stress. It can help you work out the negative emotions that can result from stress. It can give you time alone to think. I think a lot of work plans, I know I'm not supposed to think work plans, but it helps me to come up with some plans while I'm walking around. And there's 4 types of stress, and I think it's important to try and put all of those kinds of exercise, 4 types of exercise, to try to touch on all 4 of those in your routine as well. And this I also got from Peter Attia. The first one is strength. I'm not going to go too much into that. So it's muscle building, strengthening your bones and joints. Stability, aerobic efficiency, and then anaerobic capacity. So looking at your VO2 max, that's also something big these days. You can also go and read about VO2 max, and that would improve our endurance and our resilience. So what is very important in terms of exercise is doing it consistently. So if you decide that I'm walking 3 days a week, 3 kilometers, and I'm doing strength exercises 2 days a week, try to stick to that program. It's very easy when it's winter time, I'm talking for myself here, it's very easy to fall back into old habits of not wanting to get up late. But there's some things that you can do. I'm just seeing my own, I'm not sure whether you can see it, but my weights, I've got my weights always here. And when I sit in a boring meeting or so, and I don't have to have my screen on, I can always use my weights and doing my exercises while I'm doing that, while I'm watching while I'm in the meeting. I'm not going to talk too much about the exercise plan. I'm mindful of the time, but try a variety of activities like walking. Other people might enjoy swimming. Plan in advance for it. For me, what helps, for example, is if at night, in the mornings, I do a little bit of Pilates exercises. At night, I put my Pilates mat, I put it out already. And I put my exercise clothing. If I go for a walk, I put everything there. I sort of stumble over it when I get out of bed. And that really makes it easier to actually get going and stick to my plan. Managing stress. So let me just continue here. Body stress is the wear and tear on the body, our mind, and our spirit in making adjustments to the hectic demands that's placed on it. In the workplace, there is a couple of stresses that have been identified by research. For example, role ambiguity, lack of efficient tools and equipment, relationships, career advancement, job security, lack of autonomy, work-home interface, balancing that, and then also workload. Those are some of the things that we find on a daily basis. I'm going to share the slides also with Tracy, who will be sharing the slides with you. But there's also just looking at the effects of stress on our bodies. It's really a lot of negative stress, negative impact. What I would like us to maybe stop with today is one exercise that we can do is in order to help us with falling asleep, in order to help us to cope with stress. One of the most important tools that we have is breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing, so our diaphragm sits between our lung cavity and our tummy. And so if we can also call it belly breathing or deep breathing. So it's a technique that really helps you consciously using the diaphragm, and this contrasts to shallow chest breathing. So it can increase your lung capacity. It gives you more oxygen. We know we need more oxygen in our bloods to function effectively, and it promotes relaxation. So maybe there where you sit, if you feel comfortable, you can find a comfortable position. And then what I would like you to do is to put your one hand on your chest and to put the other one on your belly, just below your rib cage. And I want you to inhale slowly, breathe in deeply through your nose, and you must feel how your belly rise against your hand, and your chest should remain relatively still. So with deep breathing, you will definitely, if you keep on, I always imagine a red balloon in my tummy, and I fill it up with air through my nose slowly, and then I exhale slowly through my mouth until my belly falls flat again. So it's important to repeat this for several minutes. I do this like almost regularly every night in bed because I struggle to fall asleep, and this really helps me. It calms down my heart rate, it calms down my thinking, it just provides more oxygen to my blood, and it also helps me to relax a little bit more. Some breathing benefits that I'm going to share with you. And then I think what we will do is next time I will start with how to manage our energy. And then I'll also try to manage my time a little bit better. So this is really just 2-3 minutes on how to manage your energy, but we can start with that next week. And what I would like you to do is, I actually talked about energy sappers and energy toppers. So my challenge for the week is choose 3 things. Now, this is unfair because we didn't look at energy sappers. I will share the notes just now as well. But choose 3 things that's energy sappers that you currently experience, and set up 3 goals for the coming week, which you would like to commit to. So what are the 3 things in terms of energy? And here are some examples of energy sappers. Choose 3 of them where you say, I'm going to have a goal for this week until next week to see, how can I reduce my energy sappers, how can I increase my energy? Because energy helps us to keep alive and to be more resilient. Okay, so that is it for this week. Next week, we will look at the other building blocks, and then that is that.